In this video, we are going to see some of the use cases of higher order functions. So here in our example, we have a variable named numbers, which contains a collection of numbers. We have a function isOdd that returns true or false based on the number. We have a function called filterOdd, which accepts an array, loops over that array, and checks whether that value is odd or not. And based on that, it pushes the value if it is odd number into final array, and this function returns final array. So what do you want is to pass an array to the function and return a new array with only odd value. So let's go ahead and test this, refresh it here, and we can see the value that we are getting is 137945. All of them are odd numbers. So this function is working properly. Now in future, my requirement has changed and I also want another function that can filter only even numbers. So for that, one way to do that would be to create a copy of this function, call it even, and change the logic again. So here we'll need another function called isEven. So let's go ahead and create another function called isEven that accepts a number and returns true and false based on that value is even or not. So here we will have to do it isEven. We can call this function and in output we'll see all the even numbers. So this solution is working for us, but I don't think this is the right way to solve this problem is because the only thing changing filterOdd and filterEven is the logic here to check whether the value is even or odd. Everything else is same. And in programming, the most important concept that you'll see is do not repeat yourself. And what we are doing here is repeating ourselves. So we'll go ahead, comment out this code and try to write a function that works in both cases and we don't have to copy paste it. So we'll create a function called filter, and the difference between these two functions were understanding which function to call. So what I'll do, I'll change the function name to filter, which will accept an array. Along with that, it will accept a function. In parameter, we can call it CB. It means callback function. And whenever you will be calling the function, here, filterOdd or filterEven, let's change it to just filter. So right now, filter only needs one thing, but we'll make a function in such a way that along with that, you will have to pass the function on the basis of which you decide whether to push the value or not. So we'll pass this function here by saying isOdd. Keep it in mind that we are passing a function reference, not a function call. But in this case, I don't want to call isOdd, I just want to call isEven. So when we are calling filter function, we are passing an array and a function using which it will decide whether to push the value in final array or not. And that function here in parameter is called callback. So instead of saying isEven, I can directly say callback, because whatever function reference being passed from here will be stored in CV parameter, and inside CV we can pass the value, and if it returns true, it will be pushed, otherwise it will not be pushed. Now refresh this and see the output remained same, but now we have made our function really useful by creating it in this way. We have a higher order function that is filter that accepts an array and a function, and based on that function, it pushes the value in final array and returns that value. So in this way, I can create a function called isDivisible by 5. Only if the value is divisible by 5, you return true. And here, instead of that, we can just say filter the numbers array, but this time you have to check whether this value is divisible by 5 or not. Refresh it, and here we can see all the value that is divisible by 5. So now what we are doing, we need a function and an array, and this filter function will act on these two things and give us a final array. So this is the first use case of using higher order function. So let's move on to the second type of higher order function. We'll comment it out. And here we'll create a function called multiplyBy. And multiplyBy accepts a number and returns another function that accepts another number and returns the multiplication of that value. So let's try to use it to understand it better. So we'll say multiply by 10 is equal to, we'll call multiply by and we'll pass a value 10. And as we know, whenever this function will be called, whatever is being returned from here will be stored in multiply by 10. So another function is getting returned from here. So now if we go ahead and log the value by saying console.log multiply by 10, we'll see this function. And here we can see it accepts a parameter, and here we can see it accepts a parameter and returns num multiplied by num2. So we know that this is the function coming from here. What if I call this function with another value, that is 20? So now 20 is num2 and 10 is num. And 10 multiplied by 20, the output will be 200, and we can see that. Similarly, what if I want to say multiply by 10, but this time instead of 20, I'm just saying 12. The output will be 120. So in this kind of higher order function, you return a function definition from a function. And you can use it in this way. Not only this, so now we can use this pattern to create a multiple function. Like, what if this time I don't want it to be multiply by 10, I want it to be multiplied by 5. So this time I'll pass multiplied by 5. And instead of calling multiplied by 10, we'll call multiplied by 5. And if we refresh it, the first two values will be multiplied by 10, but this one will be multiplied by 5. So 20 multiplied by 5 is 100, 12 multiplied by 5 is 60. So in this way, we can use higher order function to create multiple function with different variable, so it can be used in different ways. So here we saw two different examples. In one of the example, we were accepting function definition and using that function definition to filter the array. In another one, we are returning a function. So there are two ways you can understand whether a function is higher order function or not, whether it is accepting a function definition or returning a function definition. So in this way, we can see the multiple use cases of higher order function.